I will call the meeting to order of the State Government Policy, Finance, and Elections Committee, today being Wednesday, May 10th at 1:40 p.m. Welcome, Senator Rosen, to the committee. And when you're ready, you just go ahead and, the audio record, and then proceed to take care of your bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. We have the omnibus pension bill, 2017 omnibus pension bill before you. And it's a bill that has been worked on for the last 2 years, actually. We just amended in the Pension Commission the 2016 omnibus pension bill into this provision, and then adopted some reform that we have been working on through the legislative commission all session. A reform that was actually brought forward originally from the governor's blue ribbon panel that they worked through in the fall, and it was a very good a place to start, a reference point, and that's where we started. And then we worked on, and the pension commission has been working on some reform over the summer and brought it to our attention, and we studied that ongoing and decided to adopt 3 more proposals to really make a very sound pension reform bill moving forward. And if you recall, the pension bill from last year, 2016, was vetoed by the governor over some TRA provisions, the employee-employer contribution. It did cost TRA about $13 million to have that veto, and it did leave their assumed rate of return at 8.5%, where everybody else was at 8%. So with that, I would like to start just a little bit, just reference going back to the 2016, what's in the pension bill. The non-controversial provisions is the plan's administrative changes, and members, and Madam Chair, I'm going to be going off this piece here right in front of you. Yeah, and it pretty well spells it out. The actuarial assumptions, they were down to 8%. The Volunteer Firefighter Relief Association modifications, the para-administrative retirement plan modifications was in last year's bill. The small group retirement changes and some other retirement changes for gifts and donations. What's new for the 2017 pension bill is starting with number 2, the volunteer firefighter provisions. And one of them, Senator Sparks, was the Austin Volunteer Fire Relief Association, the relief working group for the volunteer firefighters, and the withdrawal from the para option. Also, the City of Brook Park Volunteer Firefighter Relief Association adjustment. And those were all just personal issues that we adopted. Some of the other changes were the service credit purchase in the 2017 bill, excuse me. The MSRS Correctional adds the Department of Corrections positions for food supervisor and medical assistant certified to the statutory list of positions eligible for retirement coverage by MSRS, and adds the DHS's physical therapist position at St. Peter Hospital to their list. It also has the small group retirement changes for a Winona State University employee, and authorizes an eligible Duluth Township employee to retroactive para-general plan coverage. And in the MSRS unclassified plan, it delays the implementation of factors for 3 years, but only for those 63 or who have 26 years of service can take advantage of this delay. The new factors would result in a smaller monthly pension than other current favors. And then also has the plan's administrative changes. So number 4 is the benefit reforms, and that's where at the Pension Commission worked very, very hard. And I'd like to thank Ms. Lincheski and Ms. Barth for their diligence and their expertise. And like I said, they worked over the summer to bring a lot of this reform to us succinctly and in a very clear manner. And we sat down a lot, weekly, sometimes twice a week, amongst ourselves and with the plan managers to figure out the direction to go. And I think we have a very good bill forward. The biggest change is reducing the investment rate of return from 8% to 7.5%, the governor's recommendation, and we applied it to all plans. Now, TRA would like to have it bumped back up to the 8% after 5 years, but we decided to keep all the plans at that level. To eliminate the COLA triggers was another governor recommendation and applies to all the plans except the judges. We extended the amortization period to 30 years, the governor's recommendation for all plans. The augmentation, the early retirement, and the post-retirement adjustment COLA was something that we worked on separately. That was our pension reform bill number 2. And we decided to take those 3 reforms out of a long list of many. And we worked with the plans on these, and they just seem to be common sense. For the augmentation, it's the annual automatic percent increase, which was 2% for most plans, to a pension benefit accrued by an individual who leaves public service prior to retirement. We're one of 2 states in the nation that has that still on the books. And frankly, we were a bit surprised to hear that we still have that. That was news to us. The early retirement augmentation would eliminate that for early retirement benefit calculation and implement a phased-in elimination of augmentation over a 5-year period. That was something we felt strongly about, and it would apply to MSRS General, Para-General, TRA, and St. Paul teachers. And it would maintain the augmentation in the 6230 rule for TRA and St. Paul teachers. So we did make that accommodation. The post-retirement adjustment, the COLAs that would defer the start of a COLA to a retirement age of 66 or 18 months after retirement. We did accept an amendment this morning in Pension Commission to delay it for 5 years to 2023 for until all the retirees reach normal retirement age. And it would again apply to MSRS General, Para-General, TRA, and St. Paul teachers. We did adjust the refund interest rate to from 4% to 3%, and it would apply to all the plans. And we eliminated the contribution stabilizer, and that would be for all plans. We also this morning made a decision on how to handle the situation with Fairview and the MSRS augmentation rate. That was a very tough decision, and we decided to go ahead and treat them the same as all the plans. So the bill takes their augmentation rate from 4.5% down to 0% after 5 years. The COLA adjustments, and we can go through that. I'll go through that and then turn it over to Ms. Lincheski and Ms. Barth to go through the numbers. But MSRS General, we reduced the COLA from 2% to 1% for 5 years. After that, the COLA moves up to 1.5%. That was a compromise with the plan managers. MSRS Correctional lowers it to 1.5%. The MSRS State Patrol, their current COLA is 1%. We left it there. Para-General, no COLA adjustment. Police and Fire for Para, no COLA adjustment. Para-Correctional, it would match MSRS Correctional at 1.5%. And TRA, we reduced the COLA from 2 to 1%. St. Paul teachers, we freeze the COLA for 2 years, and currently their COLA is 1%. So with that, I would like to turn it over to either Ms. Barth or Ms. Lincheski, and they could go through the employer and employee contribution numbers.
Thank you very much, Senator Rosen. And for the audio record, name and title. Thank you.
Rachel Barth, Deputy Director of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement. Madam Chair and committee members, so for MSRS General, there is both an employee and an employer contribution increase. For the employee, that will be a total of a 0.5% increase spread out over 2 years, so 0.25 in fiscal 18-19. For MSRS General employers, that will be a total of 0.75% split out over 2 years, so 0.375 in fiscal 18, 0.375 in fiscal 19. For MSRS Correctional, there is both an employee and an employer contribution increase. For the employee, it will increase 0.5% in fiscal 18. For the employer, it will, for the regular employer contribution rate, that will increase by 1.55% in fiscal 18. And there will be an implementation of a new supplemental employer contribution. So that will be 1.45% in fiscal 19, increased by 1.5 to in fiscal 20, and then increased again by 1.5 in fiscal 21 for a total of 4.45%.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Kent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm having trouble tracking. There was some reference made to a document that is different than what we have. So we're going through a lot of numbers, and I'm having a really hard time because what we have is the nonpartisan document, but apparently you guys are working off a different one than we have, so.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Kent. You must have handouts, don't you, from the,
I don't know if they got this one, Senator.
from the, they're coming right from the Pension Commission, so
So, Madam Chair, if
do you have these, can we use these?
We have this one.
What can you just? Senator Rosen, let's see if we can get something here. They really
Absolutely.
should have those charts and things.
So, Madam Chair, if you look at our
I know what-
summary,
Yeah, I know what you have, but
so
that
page
is,
12, it will lay it out.
I understand.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We're getting a copy of,
Madam Chair?
yes, Senator Rosen.
Senator Kent, I like my version a little better, as this is a little complicated.
Yes, it is.
And my apologies, we should have had, we just got off a pension commission this morning, and this makes me confused, too.
Okay. I'm our understanding, Senator Kent, if you look through your material, there should be charts. Maybe you just haven't gotten to it.
If someone can point me to a page, I'm happy to
Okay.
figure out what.
They should do that.
Try
All
to
right.
track along.
Do we have a page number that we can use for Senator Kent?
Madam Chair?
This is kind of I don't have that document, so I don't know what you're working off, Senator. She has this one? Okay.
Madam Chair, page 12 is where Ms. Barth left off on the MSRS General and Corrections. Oh, MSRS General, excuse me.
Does it say it's a government rec? Probably not, no.
No, I can say if you want me to.
So you are now working off of this nonpartisan, right?
Yes.
And you're on page
Madam Chair,
12.
yes, the legislative.
That'll make it a lot easier
Right.
than your notes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so Madam Chair, so yes, if you're on page 12 and you're looking under Article 7, Section 5, this is the new supplemental employer contribution for MSRS Correctional. And so that will increase by 1.5% until fiscal '21, where it's 4.45% total. And then that supplemental contribution will go away when the market value of assets of MSRS Correctional equals or exceeds the actuarial accrued liability.
And that is the governor's recommendation.
Yes. So the governor's recommendation, just for some perspective, so the MSRS general employee contribution rate of 0.5% is the governor's recommendation, and then the MSRS correctional employee and employer contribution rates come from the governor's recommendation, as well as what I will discuss next, which is the state patrol employee and employer contribution rates. So for a state patrol employee, so members, so Section 6, that increases 1% over 2 years. So fiscal 18, that will be 0.5. Fiscal 20, that will be 0.5. The employer, for the regular employer contribution rate, that will increase a total of 1.5% split out over 2 years. So fiscal 18, that will be 0.75%, fiscal 19, 0.75%. And then similar to MSRS Correctional, the State Patrol is also implementing a new supplemental employer contribution increase, and that will increase over 4 years up to a total of 7%. And like the correctional plan, that will remain in effect until the market value of assets equals or exceeds the actual accrued liability. Next are the para, police, and fire employee and employer contribution rates, which were also recommended by the governor. So the employee will be a total of 1% split out over 2 years, and the employer will be a total of 1.5% spread out over 2 years. Next are TRA contribution increases. The employee contribution rate increase will be a total of 0.75% split out over 4 years, so that's about 0.1875% every single year. And then the employer will be a total of 1% split out over 4 years. And then finally, for St. Paul teachers, The employee increase will be at 0.25% in fiscal 2022, and the employer will be a total of 2.5% split out over 4 years. And then do you want me to do direct aids? And then finally, for Article 8, that discusses the direct state aids. So for the para PNF, which was the governor's recommendation, the plan will receive $4.5 million October 2018, $4.5 million October 2019, and then $9 million annually after that as a direct appropriation. And then St. Paul teachers will receive, starting October 1, 2017, a $5 million annual appropriation every single year.
Madam Chair, that is the bill.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Senator Rosen. And I appreciate the information very much at this time, Ms. Mars. And so do you have another testifier that wants to go over some more material, Senator Rosen?
No, Ms. Linczewski is with the Pension Commission.
Okay. All right.
Our
All right.
nonpartisan staff, and so she's here. to
Okay, so
further-
Senator Rosen, is that your presentation at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Senator Rosen. Questions, members? Okay, seeing no questions, do you have a motion, Senator Rosen?
I do not.
I think we have Senator Jasinski? I didn't mean you, I meant, yes, no, I understand.
No, I think
Just a
Senator
moment,
Senator Westrom has something.
has a question?
Madam Chair, and I guess Senator Rosen, if I understand it correctly, we're going down to an assumption of 8% from 8.5%. Is that correct?
Senator Westrom, question for Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Westrom, no, we are currently at 8%. We're going down to 7.5% for all the funds. TRA was supposed to go down to 8% last year. The bill was vetoed, so they jumped back up to 8.5%. So we are taking them from 8.5% down to 7.5%.
Okay.
And they are requesting to go back up to 0, but we wanted to leave all the plans at 7.5%.
You mean they're requesting?
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Senator Westrom?
Madam Chair, they're requesting to go up to 8? You said
After
up
5.
to 0?
Senator Westrom? Yeah.
Madam Chair, and
Senator Rosen.
Senator Westrom, right, after 5 years.
After, and Madam
Senator
Chair,
Westrom.
Senator Rosen, but we're going to keep them at 7.5? Is that correct?
Senator Rosen?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Westrom, we are. We're keeping all the plans at the assumed rate of return at 7.5%.
And Senator Rosen, there's no bouncing up for anybody after that. It is go forward 7.5, correct?
Yes,
Senator
Madam Chair.
Rosen? Okay.
And
Does that
Madam-
answer your question, Senator Westrom?
One of them, Madam President, or Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Sure.
If
Go
I can
right ahead.
follow up, just to that point, I appreciate you going in that direction. I think that's still an aggressive recovery, and I'm not sure where they're investing that most of the others in the markets can't seem to find that kind of ongoing positive guaranteed return year after year. It's easy in an up market like we've seen the past few years, but I think it's the right direction. I'm not sure 7.5 is still sustainable. But Senator Rosen, I just had a call to my office from a rural teacher, and they're concerned about this bill and some bailouts for the TRA and Duluth pensions. I think they were referring to the prior ones, but how that's affecting their pension now, and is that related to this bill, and what might, I wasn't clear on what their concern was in this bill because of the prior bailouts and their concern that their pension is now affected because of some other pensions that weren't sustainable. If you can add to that at all or give me any insight, I'd appreciate it.
Senator Rosen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Westrom, the Duluth teachers bailout or readjustment was 2 years? 2 years ago. And so, and that, they just did not have the bodies to be able to sustain that fund ongoing. So that's all we have. We have one small adjustment for Duluth in this bill, and perhaps they're equating it to that they need. I'll be honest that, we are not following exactly what TRA wanted. We have a lot what the governor proposed, but we are trying to treat the funds very fairly, and I think it's a very fair bill going forward. But there is no plan to fold any other teacher, like St. Paul teachers or such. We already took care of Duluth. St. Paul teachers is the only one, and we're just working very hard to make them sustainable and whole.
Senator Rosen, I think kind of one of the questions was, is there any harm done by doing this to anybody else's pension or retirement? I think there's a little bit of that kind of a question that came through with Senator Westrom. Can you address the work that you've done today and how that might affect anybody else's pension because of what is being done today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I do believe there is a shared sacrifice in this bill, and I think that was loud and clear that we, going forward with our reform, we wanted to make sure that there was investments from the state, from the employer, and from the employees. TRA, yes, they're not going to come up and say, yes, we're in support of this bill. The other plans, Para and MSRS and St. Paul teachers, everyone was at the table. But we feel this is a good direction forward that does bring reform, adjustment, but it is a shared sacrifice. And we're not asking the employee to share it all. We are going to make an investment. As you notice, there are no dollars in this bill. That will be completed when it gets to finance at that time. But yeah, there.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. I suspect that some of this is because if these things are not done, that then the pensions themselves are at risk of being unable to complete their payouts at some time in the future. And so that is what is at stake here, Senator Westrom. I just want to mention on the 7.5%, that is not a guaranteed annual return. That is an assumption, and it's based upon averages over a 30-year amortization period, that there would be an average over that period of time of 7.5, similar to what you see in the private sector. You may have a year-on-year, but then you might have a 5-year spread, 3-year, 10-year, or so on. And so that is what has, that 7.5 does not mean that every year they get a return of 7.5.
Madam Chair.
Senator Westrom.
To that issue, and I appreciate the clarification, but and maybe staff or Senator Rosen could clarify otherwise if it's not. My understanding, though, Madam Chair, is by putting that 7.5 assumption in, they base off annual increases and other payouts based on that assumption, and if they don't hit that assumption, that's what puts the fund in jeopardy or in the need of either a bailout or a much more dramatic change by the participants in the fund. And if I'm wrong, maybe staff could correct me, but that's I think the big issue with the assumption is sometimes if you assume too high, the day to pay the piper eventually comes, and that's why we had to bail out Minneapolis and Duluth. But if I'm incorrect in that assumption and they just do the payouts based on what they actually got that year, then I'd like that to be noted on the record if somebody could clarify that.
Right. Senator Westrom will certainly do that. But one of the things that I kind of hear in there was in our pension systems at one time in the past, there was if the fund did 12% one year, their COLAs were adjusted and included some of that year-on-year types of returns. That is no longer the case. It is now a fixed amount that is established, including in this bill. There is a fixed amount. And so that assumed rate of return just goes into the general fund. Any individual retiree does not have any year-on-year gain from that or added to their COLA at all. So sometimes people, this was a while ago, that was ended, and sometimes those little memories of that going on. But if we could have somebody at the,
thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Lenczewski could.
Ms. Lenczewski.
Looks like she's nodding her head with some input to come.
I have a terrible cold, so I'm sorry I'm not speaking all that much today, but Susan Lenczewski, Executive Director of the LCPR. It is true. The benefits are not at all tied to the assumed rate of return. And in fact, the liability that the plans take on every year does not keep, there are more liabilities each year than there are funds going into the plans. And it's in part due to the fact that they're not meeting this investment return assumption. We haven't seen 7.5 for a few years. So we are falling short every year. Liabilities exceed the amount of assets.
Okay, Senator Westrom, I hope that clears things for you. And with that, we could
Madam
maybe...
Madam Chair, it
Senator
did, but I
Westrom?
think it makes my point, and that's the issue that I think is the elephant in the room.
Senator Westrom, exactly. And I think that's a point well made. Senator Kent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I spent the morning in the Teacher Licensure Committee, Conference Committee, working on that because we are trying to figure out how we're going to take care of our teaching needs throughout our state. We know we have shortages in different communities and certainly in different areas of teaching. And so when I think about this and we think about the commitments that our teachers make and the commitments we make back to them and what that means for their willingness to stay in the field, it's just striking to have both these conversations in the same day. I'm wondering, Madam Chair, are we going to have testimony, public testimony on any of these issues? I see people in the room who I know are interested in this issue.
Yes.
Okay.
We're just getting to answering questions from our meeting at this time.
I would just, at this point, I just wanted to make that connection, you know, that we are, this isn't just about our immediate retirees. You know, this is looking forward and what this means in terms of how we recruit and retain workforce in some critical areas. And I know all of us are hearing these calls in our communities and from our districts. And so I just wanted to make that connection.
And Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Rosen.
Thank you. To Senator Canton, and that's why the amendment was adopted this morning to delay that COLA retirement adjustment, because we did have a very good discussion about, is there going to be a rush to early retirement? And we wanted to delay that. We did to 2023 instead of 2018. So that was a very strong move on our part. Yeah.
So Senator Rosen, we were going to do a motion now to adopt your delete all amendment, and then my intention is to have testifiers.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion from Senator Jasinski on
So moved.
the 12A amendment. All right, so moved. SO 545-12A moved by Senator Jasinski. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion prevails and is adopted. Okay, Senator Rosen will have testifiers come forward. Okay, we just have one testifier who did sign up, is not present in the room at this time. And so are there other testifiers that want to come forward? I know you just had the Pension Commission, so feel free to come on up, Mr. Rice. And if there's somebody else, would you just come on forward so we know? And you could actually take a seat on the other side of Senator Rosen. Is there anybody else at this time? Okay. Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is quite an impressive bill, and it really reflects 2 years of work because, as Senator Rosen said, the governor vetoed last year's bill, so a number of these provisions that are in this bill are ones that actually passed both bodies with.
Mr. Rice, so sorry to interrupt you, but they're really fussy about this. The audio record, just say your name and.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Brian Rice, and I'm here on behalf of AFSCME Council 5. AFSCME Council 5 is a union of over 40,000 state and local unit government employees. What I wanted to say, there's a lot of provisions in this bill. There are a lot of good provisions. What my testimony today is calling the committee's attention to one particular provision that we think as it moves forward needs some additional consideration, and that's in Article 2 dealing with the Para General Plan. Para General at the beginning of the session did not come forward with a recommendation for any changes in benefits affecting basically state and, county, city employees. the bill, as it evolved, did capture those employees with respect to augmentation, early retirement factors, a 90% trigger factor that when the fund got to be 90%, the retirees would see an increase in their COLA. And lastly, an extension of the funding date. One of the measures was mitigated this morning with an amendment in Pension Commission dealing with reducing the COLA for those para-general members who retired early. But the point of my testimony is this. Although those provisions are in for the other funds, none of the groups affected by para-general were involved in these discussions until just the last 24 hours. Ordinarily, as pension policy is developed, we've heard the term shared sacrifice. We've also heard the term where people will be engaged through their pension board or through their collective bargaining representatives or through bills that we're hearing. And although we appreciate a lot of the work that Senator Rosen has done on these issues, we feel that this issue, provisions in the bill that affect para-general, were not really vetted well by the constituent groups. There was no recommendation by the para board on these topics. And so at this late point in the session, we hope as the bill moves forward, either in the bodies or in conference committee, that those provisions would not be included.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rice. Senator Rosen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have worked with Mr. Rice on many issues in the past, and I guess I will challenge that comment, because we had a very thorough public hearing on the benefit reforms that we were looking at. And there's certainly the para representation was in the room when we had the Pension Commission, the House Chair, myself, and all the staff to look at these benefit reforms. We decided on augmentation, the early retirement pension piece, and the post-retirement adjustment COLA. We did not have a hearing on those three going forward to have public testimony, but there was a public hearing on all that benefit reform. I just assumed that if there was problems, it would have been brought to my attention. So Monday night was the first time I heard that there was some dismay on how it had been handled, or that there was a problem with those benefit reforms.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Okay, to our next testifier. We do have one more waiting. If you mind, I'll just have him. And again, your name and who you represent for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jay Stoffel. I'm the Deputy Executive Director at the Teachers Retirement Association. So I'll address the TRA side of the bill, and we have worked very hard with Senator Rosen and with Pension Commission staff over the last several months. So it's been a lot of work and a lot of effort that's gone into this. So we appreciate all that work and all that time. But we still have a difference in how we look at the bill as in its current form. We had some guiding principles at the TRA board to try to make something work this year. Obviously, financial stability of the pension plan is very important. We had intergenerational equity as one of our guiding principles. The pension exists to help retain and attract good teachers in the public schools, so that's one of our guiding principles. We didn't want to do anything that really erodes that factor of having these pensions. And then the idea of a shared and balanced commitment to the solution, where those were our four guiding principles to what we designed as a solution here. And what we ended up with was something a little bit different than what we developed. The solution that's in the bill puts the burden of the solution primarily on the members of the pension plan. About 87% of the solution is borne by the active and the retired teachers, and 13% is being provided by the employer side of the equation. So what the teachers are going to experience with this bill would be higher employee contribution rates into the future, a lower cost of living adjustment once they do retire, and if they retire early before the age of 66, higher early retirement penalties. So it's really three ways that an active teacher is going to be affected by this legislation to this degree. The retirees would be giving up part of their COLA, so that's their contribution. On the employer side, it's a higher employer contribution rate, but again, that's 13% of the total solution, and the members are putting in the 87%. So that is really a difficult thing for the TRA board. The TRA board does not support this part of the legislation. The stakeholder groups have also opposed this, the legislation as it exists. And so I don't know, maybe there's time yet to do some more tweaking of the bill, but we're still hoping to have some continued discussions.
Thank you very much. One of the questions I have for you, and this would be for any of the testifiers, if these adjustments are not made, how do you see the future of this fund in paying benefits to future retirees?
Madam Chair, the future of the fund is okay. We're today somewhere between, let's say in the 70% range, and I kind of waffle on that a little bit because it kind of depends how you measure. And one of the measuring sticks is the interest rate that we use to measure and discount our liabilities, the investment return assumption. So under current law, we're 75% funded with our 8.5% assumption. If we measure with with our current 8.5% assumption, with a 7.5% assumption, and with the provisions in our bill, we would be at about 70% funded and remain at that level going forward. So if our provisions were adopted, and if we had including a 7.5% return for 5 years and then bumping it back up to 8%, that would keep us at a 70% funded ratio for the future. Not the best place to be, but I think there are a lot of states around the country that are in the 40s, the 30% range, and going south. We'd like to get our lines going in an upwardly sloping direction, but the long term of the fund is okay. We do need to do something. Last year the bill did not go forward. This year we're working on it. We do believe we need to do something with the plan.
Thank you very much. I kind of look at it as 30% short, and 30% is a pretty big number to be short. So we'll take our next testifier then. Oh, sorry, Senator Westrom, I didn't see you.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just to that question to the testifier, can you explain what you indicated if we drop the assumption to 7.5, the liabilities go down, actually increase by going from 75 to 70%. What am I missing? Why do the liabilities go down if your assumption of return actually goes down and you don't have to meet as high of a mark on your returns? If you can explain that by going from 8.5 to 7.5.
Go ahead, please.
Madam Chair, Senator Westrom, to clarify, if our assumption goes down, our liabilities will go up. Our funding ratio will go down. I think that's what I was maybe trying not to confuse here, but if we measure at 8.5%, we're 75% funded. If we measure at 7.5%, our funding ratio drops. That's the ratio of assets to liabilities. So that ratio drops. It gets worse. Our liabilities grow if we drop our assumed rate of return. We assume less money coming into the plan. Liabilities are discounted at a lower rate, so the funding will deteriorate with a lower investment return assumption.
Thank you very much, Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Stoffel is correct on that. If we do not do anything I would like to add, if we do not do anything and allow this to continue, we are at 30% funded going forward. After 30 years of the augmentation rate, we will hit 90% for TRA if we adopt these reforms that are in this bill.
Thank you, Senator Rosen.
So, Madam Chair.
Senator Westrom?
Just to follow up on that, so to the testifier, so if the assumption's 8.5, I get that on paper it projects that there's more money coming in, but we've heard that we aren't reaching that and it's not necessarily reachable. So what is the real number that's coming in, and how do the liabilities change? What's the reality If it's only 6 or 6.5 or 7% that comes in, and the assumptions are at 8.5, what's the gap that exists based on reality versus what the assumption is?
I would say, Senator Westrom, that's your 30%. So when you are 70% funded or 75% funded, that difference is that 25 or 30%. And so that is that gap. That is exactly it. When you talk about unfunded liabilities, that's in part where that comes from. But I think that is an important consideration. But when you reduce the assumed rate of return, it makes it just a little bit harder to do that. On the other hand, there are other factors involved. But Ms. Lenczewski, would you like to comment as well?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Westrom. There, on our website, there is posted a 30-year projection for TRA. And as things stand right now, it is projected to go to 37% at the end of their amortization period, which is 30 years. So that is the trajectory that they're on right now. When you drop the investment rate of
And
return.
Ms. Lenczewski, just to clarify, when you say 37%, that's down from 70, correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Please continue.
And Madam Chair,
Senator Westrom, and that's the trajectory without the changes in this bill.
That is correct.
All right. Senator Westrom.
Madam Chair, that's the trajectory at 8.5%?
No.
Or 8%?
It's a trajectory, I believe, at current law, which is
8.
8.
And
Well, it's a variety, Senator Westrom. I think some are at 8.5, some are at 8.
and if we go to 7.5, what's that 30-year trajectory? Is that what Senator Rosen just said? We get back up to 90%?
Senator Westrom, so the question is, with what you're doing in this bill, which there are several things being done in this bill, so it isn't just one thing, it's multiples. So we're reducing the assumed rate of return, which makes it harder to be funded, but at the same time, they're reducing the COLA and increasing contributions of employer and employee. Those four things altogether, plus the augmentation rate being changed, all of those together, when the actuarial work gets done, that is when we put ourselves on the trajectory up to that 90% in 30 years, assuming all those things play out during those 30 years as put forward in the actuarial study.
And is that the answer, Ms. Lenczewski?
Ms. Lenczewski, yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, Senator Westrom, that you are correct, Senator Kiffmeyer. That is a very...
Can I frame that?
That's an accurate summary of what's going on here.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lenczewski.
Thank
Senator
you.
Westrom?
No, Madam Chair, that's what I wanted to understand. I wanted to make sure that 37% didn't get worse, because I might have been led to believe that by some of the testimony, that if 30 years under the current plan is 37%, we're going to get worse with the 7.5, then I wanted to put the clutch in. But this makes sense to me, that we need to change the trajectory, obviously.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Westrom. I think that is exactly it. But sometimes we get focused on just one piece of it, and it is more than that in this particular bill. It's very important to remember that, because any one of them changes the trajectory, all of them together. Okay, thank you very much. Any other members? Okay, we have another testifier. We already have another testifier who's coming. Ms. Lenczewski, if you don't mind. This gentleman here is coming down, and you can take the other seat, ma'am. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dave Johnson. I represent the Minneapolis Municipal Retirement Association, or MMRA, which is a group of retirees that are members of Parish General. First of all, I'd like to thank Senator Rosen for her work on this bill. I know the pension bills can sometimes be a thankless task, so I appreciate the time and effort you put into it. Second, I did formally represent the Duluth Teachers Retirement Fund, and to be responsive to Senator Westrom's question, when that fund was merged, there was a state appropriation to pay the unfunded liability, so that there should have been no adverse impact on members of TRA, and if he likes, I could answer other questions about that. What I'm here, and Senator Rosen was very helpful, by the way, in making that happen too, so thank you for your help on that. I'm here primarily to talk about the proposed changes for the Para General Fund on behalf of retirees. Prior to 2010, all the 3 statewide funds had a 2.5 COLA adjustment, which was consistent with the Pension Commission principle of uniformity in benefits. In 2010, because of the market, there needed to be a major sustainability package, which I think everybody understood. And at that time, the Para General COLA was reduced to 1% with the 2.5% trigger, far lower than the other funds. And at that time, there was more shared sacrifice, we believe, with the other funds than there might have been with Para General. And by that, what I mean is since 2010 through 2016, and factoring in the 2010 sustainability package, MMRA hired an actuary to look at those changes. And 82% of the cost of those sustainability measures between 2010 and 2016 have been borne by the retirees. And so we paid a significant amount. And what that means is with a 1% COLA, after bearing a far greater proportion than the other groups involved in the debate in addressing the sustainability measures of Para General, you now have a COLA that we believe, and we have analysis that, as part of our work that showed that it's not one that keeps up with the inflation. Now, some Para General members do also receive Social Security, so they'll get a COLA there. But for a number of them, they are basic plan members, and there is no COLA that they aren't eligible for Social Security, so this is their primary source of retirement security. Primarily the former MRF members, which, as you may remember, you were very, Madam Chair, you were very instrumental in helping resolve that. So we just want to get those concerns on the record about the Para General COLA. You know, we always believe that we're more than willing to do our part, but we feel like we're doing a lot more than our part, and by removing the trigger, especially here, it would be a further burden on the retirees. And so we hope to continue the conversation with Senator Rosen and members about, you know, we would hope that, you know, we could get a trigger like the other funds, you know, and that's kind of the last point. There is conformity among plans in the pension bill by removing the trigger. The difference with Para General is there is no replacement. So all the other proposals in the pension bill do have some kind of replacement that's better from an actuarial perspective and can be dealt with over time that folks can rely on, but that doesn't happen. There is no replacement with Para General. So we hope to continue the conversation, and thank you for the comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate your comments. Next testifier.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and for the record, I'm Julie Blyle. I'm here today representing a number of organizations and would like to state up front that the organizations I'm going to list are united in terms of having concerns with the bill that's before you, particularly with regard to funding, and their original position, and the position remains, is in support of the governor's proposal, pension proposal that he brought forward. So the organizations, as part of this Minnesota Public Employees Pension Coalition, include AFSCME Council 5, AFSCME Council 65, AFSCME Chapter 5 Retirees, Communication Workers of America, Minnesota State Council, Conservation Officers Association, Education Minnesota Retired, Middle Management Association, Minneapolis Committee of 13, Minneapolis Firefighters Local 82, the Minnesota AFL-CIO, the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, the Minnesota Government Engineering Council, the Minnesota Nurses Association, the Minnesota Police Fraternal Association, Minnesota Professional Firefighters Association, Minnesota State College Faculty, Minnesota State Patrol Troopers Association, Police Officers Federation of Minneapolis, Retired Educators of Association of Minnesota, SEIU Local 284, St. Paul Teachers, and Teamsters Local 320. And we just actually came from a meeting and reaffirmed the position. It was unanimous with concern for the bill that's before you. I would like to, in my capacity as Legislative Director for AFSCME Council 5, just make a couple of comments regarding MSRS specific and recognize the work that Senator Rosen has done to date on that, and expressed some concerns with, it only includes a 1% cost of living adjustment for 5 years and 1.5% thereafter. Both the governor and the MSRS board proposal included a 1.5% cost of living adjustment. The bill increases the employer contribution rate, but not to the extent that the governors did. And our primary concern there is with regard to the funding and the funding that would need to be in the omnibus bills in order to have that followed through upon. There are also negative changes for all of the plans with regard to augmentation rates, both for deferred and active members. And we express these concerns on behalf of all 3 plans, MSRS, PERA, and TRA. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, Senator Rosen. Oh, we have another testifier. Is there anybody else that wants to testify? Come on to the front if you want to testify. Okay. Welcome. Please state your name and who you represent.
Hi, I'm Curtis Hutchins. I'm a member of REAM, the Retired Educators Association of Minnesota Retired Group, and I'm also a member of Ed Minnesota Retired. And I've been on the TRA board for 20 years. I was on the National Council on Teacher Retirement. I was the chair of the Research and Development Committee. And we analyzed all 50 states. And we support your efforts in the efforts of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement, but some of the issues coming up are a little concerning. I'm in still contact with a lot of national groups, and some of them are the Center for the Research Development at Boston College, the Center for the State and Local Government of Excellence, and NASRA, the National Association of System Retirement Administrators for States. And if you go to publicplansdata.org, you will see Minnesota puts in 2.25% of all state and local taxes into the public employee pension arena. The national average is double that. And I'm just curious how, in 30 years, if this continues at this level, how the fund's going to be at a 90% level. I've been retired now 11 years, and I'm real curious. Since 2009, I'll just take TRA, although this has happened with MSRS and PERA also. Since 2009, retired educators have lost the post fund, which kept them, even though they had a frugal pension, it kept them up with inflation. Matter of fact, from when it started in 1980, from 1980 to 2003, they averaged 6.8% COLAs each year. The fund was stopped in 2009. At that time, retirees were promised a 2.5% increase. That lasted 1 year. And then they were frozen for 2 years. Thereafter, they were promised a 2% COLA, which is going on to the present. And now you're proposing a 1.0, which I'm really concerned about a number of things. I'm concerned about buying power for retirees, concerned about the bonding rate of the state, concerned about the recruitment and retention of teachers going forward. As Mr. Stoffel mentioned to you, the burden on active teachers, and I have a daughter that's been a teacher for 15 years. I'm really concerned for her. They're paying, along with the retirees, over 80% of this current shared sacrifice. And I know you can't do a whole lot today, but down the road, I hope you start looking at the contribution the state is really kicking into public employee pensions when it's 2.25%. I don't know if you know it or not, but according to the groups I mentioned to you, if you look at the contributions I compare all states. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Minnesota is 47th in contributions on a percentage basis of state and local taxes. It really concerns many of us that track this kind of a thing. Right now, the funds are doing well at a 70% level, but if you look at what's happened to active and retirees as far as all these reforms, a lot of them have been on the backs of your public employees. How long can this continue? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hutchins. Mr. Hutchins, I'd also like to mention, when you mentioned that 6.8%, that was an average over those years. Those retirees in some years got 11% increase.
Exactly.
9, 10, 8. I want you to know that came out of the principal.
Right.
And the State Board of Investments contacted and recommended to the legislature that those increases in benefits were way too high and that they were taking out the principal of the fund, and that was stopped. But by that time, we had hit the 2001 and 2005, 2008 years where there were some serious declines based upon that principle. Had they listened to the State Board of Investments at that time and brought them down then, I think we'd be in a hugely much better situation right now. But taking out such huge COLAs over that 10, 11-year period of time is in particular problem. But I remember the retirees who were very happy about that. They doubled their pensions in many cases, all right, in a very short period of time. And so now the retirees that we have today, in order to help keep the fund solvent so that there is a pension, they're in the situation of much more reduced COLAs. And I firmly believe that when it comes to the amortization structure, whether it's the assumed rate of return at 7.5, they should all be at the same. If it's a COLA, then there should all be that, so that that sense of employees being treated in that way, and when one moves, then they should all have a general move in that way, because I think there is a fairness issue. But the problem is right now we've got some different things going on and flexing it, but I think that's the direction that the Pension Commission wants to go, and setting it at 7.5 on the assumed rate of return is a great place to start. And I think the ongoing efforts should be so that all retirees have a measured rate of return over whether they're contributing years or they're getting the benefit years. And that can stretch often 30, 40, 50, 60 years when you've got that dynamic going on in the pension. It's very different in the legislature when we live on a budget, 2-year budget cycle, but pensions is very unique, and it's a very long view that they take. And it's crucial to that. And that direction of going down to 37%, that is going to put the whole future people who want to get a benefit at risk of getting no benefit. And so I think that's what Senator Rosen is fighting for here, is for those future folks to be able to have that and to reverse that trajectory. But I just want to point out that while it was wonderful to enjoy that average of 6.8, the future retirees are paying the price for that very generous period of time. So we're reckoning with it now, and Senator Rosen is doing a lot of good work to help make that happen. But thank you very much for being here.
I just have an additional couple comments,
Sure, Mr. Hutchins.
Madam Chair.
Sure.
A lot of this developed in 1998. I've been following the pension issue since 1970. And in 1998, the state, as the employer, was paying 8.14%, which was the national average. The fund and the teachers were paying 6.5 at that time. What happened at that time is the state lowered the teachers' part because it was 6.5 above the national average for the employee, down to 5, which was the national average. The state at that time, the 8.14 was lowered to 5, which was well below the national average. To this day, the state does not pay 8.14. It's paying 7.5 currently, while the national average has gone up to 12.9. Since 1998, active teachers and retirees, they have paid the national average or higher. The state has not paid the national average even since 1998, not even 1 year. And at the national level, many organizations have what is called ARC, an annual required contribution they expect the state to pay. And Minnesota's been paying roughly an average of about 72% of that national 100% they should be paying. And we feel it would be a good time right now. I know that the deficit that's been created can't be made up in 1 year, but it would be really nice if the state paid the ARC, the annual required contribution. Howard Bicker, who used to be the state investment director, he would tell us over and over again, in 1998, we were 108% funded. And we did a calculation 2 years ago that if the state had paid the national average since 1998, our funds, not just TRA, but MSRS and PERA right now would be, even with 4 downturns in the market since 2000, would be at a 100% level. I'll repeat that.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchins.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Senator Rosen, any other comments?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to just say that I think this reform came about because we had these funds that are in serious demise, and we need to make that adjustment. We had a reform package in 2010 that I was a part of, and I was very proud to be part of that package. And the funds all came to the table and all worked, and it was difficult. There was, again, shared sacrifice. We were a little surprised by our mortality study that came back and has shifted the argument a little bit. And so we are adjusting. We did look more broadly than what the governor's plan was, and I think that has been very, very good for the plans to say, okay, there are other reforms that we were not even aware of, but the commission, the gals in the commission, they brought this forward. So we worked really, really diligently on this with the plan managers. I will say that no one was excluded, and they were all there. With the governor, I'd like to thank him, too, for his blue ribbon panel and how he set the tone and the foundation for this reform. We have taken his suggestion in the last probably 10 days from the commissioner to spread out that amortization period. It was at 26 years. He felt that was a little too aggressive, so we did adjust it to 30 years. That brings these plans up to between 85 to 95% funded. Members, that is impressive. That's actuarially sound figures. And that's our goal, is to make these solid. And it is going to hurt, but I do feel that this is a fair bill, and I ask for your support on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. All right, Senator, seeing no further discussion, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, as part of the discussion, I want to thank Senator Rosen. I got put on the Pensions Commission this year as a freshman, and there is a big learning curve, I will tell you. Listening to all the things in the first couple of meetings, I thought, wow, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of moving parts. You have the rate of return, you have the life expectancy, the COLA, the augmentations, and all these things you look at. And I know as a state we need to make sure that our pension plans are good, they're in good financial positions, and they're currently not in the best positions. So I also hear that we want to encourage to attract teachers because we have shortages and things like that, and I totally agree with that. But the regular market is hurting for people as well, manufacturing and technical trades and all these things. So everybody is hurting for employees right now. So the regular market outside the state pension plans as well also struggles to find employees as well. And I think this plan does get us back in good financial condition. I know when I was the mayor of Faribault, I had about 146 employees we had 4 different bargaining units. And whenever we came up for labor negotiations, every different entity has a different issue they had with or something, and you always had to balance and getting everybody happy, and that's not easy to do in that situation. And when I came from the city of Faribault up to here, I did some rough numbers, and I left them at the actual pension committee, but I believe we have 534,000 people currently involved in our plans, and we have about 5.34 million people in the state. So we do have to try and keep everybody happy, and when you see the free market out there and the regular people that are in conventional 401ks and what they're paying into, and they see what we as a state, as taxpayers, have to contribute to these plans to keep everybody happy. We have to keep 5.345 million people happy, with everybody having different needs. So I think this is a good way to get at that, and we'll continue to try and continue on to keep these plans solvent and in good financial position. But there's a lot of moving parts that I think people need to understand with this. But I think we as a pension committee want to make sure that everybody is in good position. We try and meet everybody's, but I think it's also good to try and get these plans rather fairly across the board with the standard 1% or 1.5% or whatever we are, or the 7.5% return. So instead of having different things for each different group, it's very important. So I think we've done a long job. We've spent a lot of time doing this, and I want to thank again for the experience that I've received in doing this. Is something that I didn't have a lot of experience coming into it, and I've learned just a ton of information. So I want to thank you for that. And with that, I would move for the approval of Senate File 545.
Madam Chair.
Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's on the record, Senator Jasinski, that you're grateful to be on the Pension Commission, because he teases me greatly about this. But I will say that Pension Commission is a very good commission, and we've done some really good work there. I actually am bringing Senator Jasinski with me to the governor's office here shortly. Unfortunately, they've had to cancel several meetings, but now we will be talking about this pensions, and they've been a part of this too all along, but we'll make the adjustments and we'll move forward.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, Senator Rosen. With that, we have a motion to adopt Senate File 545 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Excuse me, Council, just one moment, hold that. Motion. Okay, our general counsel said that our motion is to go to finance, but due to the internal structure of the Senate rules, it goes to rules. So, so the motion is to send it to finance.
I would amend my motion to that. Correct.
All right, so done. And Senate File 545, as amended, to Finance Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion does prevail and is adopted. Thank you, Senator Rosen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
And we have, you have other bills before us today? Okay, all right, thank you. Just hold tight for a moment here, members.
Oh, Madam Chair, I do have some.
Madam Chair, I am so long.
That's okay, Senator Rosen. I know there's a lot here, but we...
Okay. I guess I have two more bills.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, members. So, Senator Rosen, you do have two more bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have Senate File 2379 before you.
2379. All right.
Madam Chair, this is the bill that removes the constitutional officer, the state auditor from the para board, and in place puts in the commissioner of MMB. And that the commissioner of MMB is on the other boards, and we just felt a need to have consistency going forward, so we're asking that adjustment.
Okay, thank you, Senator Rosen. Do your testifiers have any
Ms. Barth?
Other to say?
No.
Pretty straightforward. Do we have any testifiers here today in regards to this bill? Not seeing any members, any comments or questions? Pretty straightforward, but okay. Senator Jasinski, you look like you're ready to make a motion then?
I make a motion to approve, to move Senate File 1384.
It's Senate File 2379 that we're on right now.
I'm sorry, 2379.
Okay, 2379 has been moved and would be referred to general orders to the floor.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senate File 2379, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails and is adopted. Thank you, Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have but one more, Senate File 1384, and it is the Volunteer Firefighters Relief Association's working group. And if I could just have Ms. Barth just briefly go through the bill, what the changes.
Okay, Ms. Bard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is pretty much a technical bill. It goes through, and the working group did a lot of work to make sure that joint powers entities were included within the statutes of Chapter 424A. So it really goes through and thoroughly cleans up definitions to ensure that there's consistency and that joint powers is included in all possible situations. It also just clarifies some issues relating to investments and standards for audits, and does a little bit more cleanup related to emergency medical personnel who, if a relief association allows it, those individuals can be part of the relief association. So just make sure that all supplemental benefits are included for those individuals as well. But again, it's a lot of just more of a cleanup bill.
Thank you, Ms. Barge. Question I have for you, though, is there any fiscal impact to the state or local governments in regards to this bill?
Madam Chair, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Linczewski, did you want to comment? All right. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none. Senator Corn, would you like to move Senate File 1384 to general orders?
Move Senate File 1384 to general orders.
Recommended to pass.
Recommend to pass Senate File 1384 to general orders.
All right. Thank you very much, Senator Corn. Seeing no further discussion or questions, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails and is adopted. Senate File 1384 is on its way to general orders. And with that, Senator Rosen, as far as I know, you have completed all your bills now.
Madam Chair, members.
All right. Members, at this time, this is we've concluded our business before the committee today. And however, we are still in session, so we'll send you notice out as early as possible and as specific as possible if there's any further activity from this committee. With that, members, we are adjourned.